Salafalava, thank you for joining me today. First, we ask our Heavenly Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit to bless this show with divine wisdom. This is a talk show where we celebrate, debate, question, interview topics that are happening around the whole of the Moana Pacific. Today, we are joined again by Professor Dr. Afualo Sailele, a Samoan economist, academic, and former MP who's a leading voice on education, economic development, and national growth in Samoa. It's a pleasure to have you on the show again, Professor Sailele. Welcome.
Yeah, Tarafa Mike, as always, it's a pleasure that we are here again, discussing with each other about some insights that we can share with our clients, our listeners, and then of course our dear Samoa. Yeah, on that note, Tarafa, welcome to everybody. Yeah. And you, Mike, as well, and the family.
Thank you, Professor. You're looking younger with your haircut, but I just hope you had a good week. How was your week? First question off the bat, Professor.
Yeah, well, it's just business as usual, because this is now the second week since we start lectures at the university. Yeah, so I had my last month. I teach on Mondays, Tuesdays, and then Fridays. But overall, I'm just fine, as fine as a fiddle.
That's good. You're looking good.
Now you mentioned something about my haircut. My wife kept on telling me the last time I had my haircut when I was, leading the sermon, when I was delivering the sermon last time. So that was, a few Sundays past. So now, this is the trouble when you are so engaged in the mental, activity type of business. You just forget about your outlook and even your hair. For most people, even if you look at the past photos of Einstein and other famous, in terms of the look, even their hairs grow very long. And I'm not saying that, I am like that, but that's the nature of us academics. We tend to be forgetting about the, other things. But it's good if you have a friend who is also the other half, to make sure that
make sure it's in check.
So the weather is still it's dry. I think we haven't had this for quite some time now. I hope that we would have some rain very soon, because the grass is getting very dry now. If it continues on for another few weeks, then definitely we might have some fires. Let's hope that is not going to be the case. Yeah, and it's quite cool, dry, because of the northerly winds, and again we are experiencing the El Nino cycle. So that's where we are. But overall, the economy, as usual, it's very expensive, and it's expected. We're having a lot of problems now with back to school, and I'm sure our families are also struggling. But at least I hope that portion of the Fund for Life would help with families in terms of school fees and other cases for students at LUS. I just found out that some Fund for Life can now only pay half of the school fee. That's what I was. So after the enrollment, if they can keep their enrollment to form to the Fonfavai, and then they will only be able to provide for half. You know, for example, most of the school fees at the foundation level are over 2,000. Some are below that, and even the rest of other programs as well. So this is per semester we're talking about. So if it's 2,000 as an example, then the Fonfavai from other constituencies, not all the Fonfavai, but will pay only half. But I know that will probably be the common case as we progress throughout this year and next year as well. Yeah. So again, the cost of living it's quite expensive. Now with the war at Middle East is getting full-fledged now. So it just doesn't look good for us here in the small islands. We really need to make sure that we look after our expenses now, from the government viewpoints, and even other small businesses as well too. And that goes for our families as well, the churches, because I think now as we speak, as we communicate, I think it's now over $100 a barrel. Yeah, and we can only expect that to go up. Let's hope. Yeah. And I think to make things worse, the other side of the Arabian Peninsula, where the Houthis, I think that is also the Houthis has also declared to control that, not Hormuz, but it's the other side. Yeah. So, but anyway, God is good. God is greater than all of us and the universe, because He created everything. So He knows yesterday, today, and of course tomorrow. So let's not be dismayed about that. Yeah, and most of the conferences, including Methodist and other churches, have completed. So the normalcy in terms of these churches' management businesses are now back to normal, except for Methodist. It's next month. The church will be going through the normal process of changing ministers, relocating them from one parish to another based on the conference to Stofila. And that includes the churches in New Zealand, Australia, and even the United States and other places. Yeah, so that's where we are. And the Prime Minister is not here, he's away. Yeah, let's hope that those things he will arrive back safely. But there's been a lot of us going around. And whilst we are on this, there was that incident that took place up at university, our university. And so it's very unfortunate, but the trend nowadays, it's quite. So I haven't really learned about what's the outcome of the students yet, but the management, we have a very strict policy on the discipline side when it comes to also, and the law will always be upheld if students are injured or affected. So that is left to this. But we can only pray and hope for the parents as well. For all of these students who were involved, as I was told, were mainly the um, were mainly the were mainly the the foundation students, those in the program. So these are very young. Most of them are about 16, 17 years old. So they still, yeah.
Okay.
But those who have already become fully fledged university students in the degrees program, you hardly see this kind of behavior.
Yeah, it's been going around on
So,
the, yeah.
yeah. So basically, we've always had problems in this level of education, the foundation, which is about, I think that's year two foundation in Australia and even in Sydney, because they're still high schools. But we created this program to remove this Form 7, it's called Form 7, the foundation program. Uh, the foundation program, yeah, um, the foundation programs, we have to house them in where we are. And that's where things are at the moment. It's still really,
Of talk about that, and that's what I've heard that people have been saying that. I saw the video myself, and I was watching it a few times, and I thought to myself, like, this is definitely the behavior of, what you say there. It makes so much sense where it is the behavior of the, of younger kids. You don't usually see these in the universities, but that makes so much sense where you say if they're foundation students, which are 16-year-olds, as you said. That's a different case for. But I had questions on that, and I will definitely get to that itty-gritty of that story, Professor. But I wanted to run through these other stories quickly with you because there's a lot of topics that I'd like to talk to you about, and issues that are happening around the Samoa, and really wanted to, I know time at the moment it's really, we don't have much time with you, and but I wanted to just skim through some of these questions. So, look, there was a story that came out of the Minister of Health, Va'ao Alofipo asked. He was caught in a, a lot, as you know, a lot of people in the medicine area, they are trying to find out what's happening with the medications, the shortage of medications, issues in the hospital. There's a lot of questions being asked by the people, by the public, and the health of minister has been avoiding these questions to kind of see at a function that had happened with the United Nations population fund. I think he was caught at one of these, and he was asked questions, and he given answers about the cleaning contract, which was kind of good to see. And also, he had mentioned $183 million, which is allocated to the health sector, is not enough, And so it's not positive, but at the end of the day, there are positives for the minister coming out and fronting the press or fronting the questions. Professor, what are your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, I saw a portion of the interview, and for me, I know the minister very well. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
He also holds some senior positions in the church. This is the SDA, and I was really happy that he, honesty is the best policy. What can we? He just came out and said that. And I feel for him because the budget is not enough. That's very true. And if you look at the ministry, this is one of the largest ministries with one of the largest budgets as well, probably the largest. But still, it's not enough. And see, what is happening now? Remember, the Ministry of Health used to be two. There used to be two, like the administration And then of course we have the technical side, and I think that went on for about 10 years. And then the review, uh, somehow the government decided to remerge. And during that process of remerging, now we're going back to square one with one single, ministry, which is very, very big, very, very big. And I believe this is one that contributes significantly to the problem, which is now, popping up. And when you try to manage a very, very large ministry with limited funds, there is no way that you're going to guarantee to deliver all the expectations of the medical, I would say, health, the healthcare system is, and that's why it's very important that the government also needs to look into encouragement, let's say encouragement or the promotion of the private sector. In the private healthcare system, of course, we do have, but we don't have a national, we don't have a private hospital like we used to have. But then that ended up in a failure because there was no assistance from government for that. But I think from my perspective, this is one of the best ways to help out with the problem, is to strengthen the private sector, this hospital, the healthcare system that is being provided by them. And then the government will also have to improve their services as well. And in that case, we will have that competition. And through that competition, both will aspire to improve. Like what is happening in your side, like what you're experiencing there. You have that even in New Zealand and even Fiji and other places like that. So I was very surprised when the remerge aspect of that development went back to, and now. So my only take on that, it's not going to improve. It's going to be worse. How can I feel very, very sorry for the minister? He just said publicly he's only given limited funds. So how can you? And then again, that contract would have been a thorn on the management. The FAST government, but I think that was coming forward from FIME, from FAST 1. But the contractors, the contractor who won the first contract, that was, I was told, this is what I was told. I was told that it was done through the normal, by invitation. Usually, if a contract is over 500,000, over 50,000, I think, then that would have to go direct into the tender board, and then the tender board will have to, do the usual things, advertise, and then the process of selecting the best one. But a lot of criticisms from the public about them winning, the former one, which the one who was dismissed by the current minister.
Oh, okay. So that was yep.
Yeah. But I also feel for that former contract, because if the contract that was given was probably maybe $1 million or $2 million, I'm not really sure, but even with that amount, there's no way that you can satisfy all these services that you're given and only if you are not getting the money, from the contract. So what is happening? As as a contractor, you really have to make sure that the payments are on time, and that has been a challenge for the government. Now we know now. See, I think for the last 2 quarters, the growth of GDP within those 2 quarters were negative. So we are basically under the recession period. And remember, I explained that in the last time. So that revenue loss that was supposed to be collected within those 2 sectors from the last budget did not come in. But yet the commitment from the private contractors and even ministries and SOEs have already committed their funds. But now there's nothing to replace them. So what can you say?
It's a really messy
And I
year.
think, yeah, it's a big problem. And I can only hope, because we are now in the first month of the new budget, I don't know what is happening to the other, because we need to find out about the results of the statistical results of the revenue collection, so that we can be able to make some realistic expectations of what might happen in the future and at the situation. So that is basically where things are at the moment. Yeah. I feel sorry for him, but one thing I know that he was very honest.
Yes. Yes.
He just came out, my hands are tight and I can't, because this is and if the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance is listening, I think they really need to look at cutting the expenses. Even the minister now has no other choice but to cut all other expenses. I mean, unnecessary. But remember, when you're providing a very crucial service like the health, no service is unnecessary. All of these services are geared towards ensuring that a life is safe, a life is secure to live another day. But if one of those crucial services is not fulfilled because of the budget, who is to blame? It's the government. And it's a government. So Lauli and the cabinet needs to look for some funds outside of us, our donors, our friends, if we can have that. Cut other unnecessary expenses like traveling and other, and put your money where your mouth is.
That's exactly right.
The public has been suffering for quite some time, especially the senior citizens, the pensions, and it's not good. I mean, for me, for example, my daughter, who is a doctor, she prescribed everything for going to Australia to upgrade her degrees, and she always made sure that we got enough supply, and we don't go to the National Hospital because we know that we're not going to get it, although that I am a pensioner. So I am not going to get that benefit because there's nothing there. So my wife has to pay the private sector through the private sector, and that it's expensive. So imagine that, in my case and others as well, we can afford it, but think of the risk. Think of the rest of the country, parents, citizens, pensioners, and citizens who cannot afford, who rely on this public health system that we are on business. That's I think that's something that now for education, government is also playing a very significant role. But you can become an uneducated child for probably maybe 2 or 3 years, but you cannot go without medicine for 1 month or 2 months.
That's right. That's so true.
So let's hope for the best.
Yes.
I hope our Prime Minister's trip will come back with a load, benefits from our friends to help us alleviate the situation that we have in the healthcare system.
Yeah, you make some really good points there, Professor. And I really do take my hat off to the head of health, this man, to say the truth for what it is. I mean, yes, it's not a positive, but then it is a positive because it's letting people know the truth. And I don't know if this, just ringing in my mind at the moment. Just the mentality of being a winner. And I think I think as the government, when I'm looking at the government as the prime minister, you're looking at a team that's got to make sure that the government, which Samoa wins. You have the mentality to win, to not win the election, but win for the benefit of all Samoans. This is if I was the prime minister, that's the mentality you should have. And then this goes across all the boards, meaning all the head of health, the head of everyone that have got their own ministries. Now, we know this man, his background might not be health. Maybe he does. And then across the board, there are many members that don't have the background and expertise. They weren't studied, that's not their background, or they don't have a strong background in those ministries that they sit on top of, the board of. And so, in saying that, we understand that. That's just the reality of things. But just the mentality of the winning mentality, finding a way for us to better the ministry. I mean, look, the man he can only do so much. But I think it's this mentality which, the way I can kind of put it into perspective is if you go on a team, in a rugby team, Professor, and you in Samoa, you would know this. If you go into a team and you want to win, you want to make sure that your brothers that are next to you are wanting to win too. And if you're on the field and you can see 2 or 3 of your brothers have the vibration that they're just there to play, it really puts you off because you play the game because you want to win. But I think this is my point I'm trying to bring around here is the fact that like the government, it's a game. And you have to play to win. And you have to play to find a way to win. And we have to be honest with each other. But if you come in and you just it's just your job because I'm the head of the health or head of any other ministry, this is the problem that we have here. And so when these people, they just come and say, well, I only know so much, it's my job and blah, blah, blah. I think this is where we kind of suffer, and especially in the government sector, Professor. What are your thoughts on this little analogy?
Yeah. Well, see, this is based on a very simple business model. Very simple. If your revenues does not equate to your expenses, the best thing for you is to cut the expenses. That's what you're going to do if you want to survive. If you want to provide the best, for your clients, then you have to maximize what you have, and that's exactly what they need to do with the Minister of Health. Now, the situation is now this poor minister has been given a limited budget, which cannot finance all of these services, the health services. So I think the next thing for him to do now is just don't worry about it, because if that is all that was given to him, he has to look for other assistances from our donor partners. But the best thing to do is to slash, look into reducing the expenses, and that would be very, very painful for the ministry and the people of Samoa. See. But if you really want to go, because you cannot carry on that loss, because really it will catch up with the ministry, and then eventually the whole. So it's a painful situation, but it's a simple economic business model that we need to look at. See, I think the last time I explained about there are 4 of medical healthcare systems, healthcare systems that we have in Samoa. The first one is the public healthcare system, and that is funded by taxpayers. Where Matotua, the main hospital, and then we have Tosini and other district hospitals. So all of the doctors and the airline healthcare positions are funded by the taxpayers. This is the public healthcare system that we have. You also have that in Australia. And then we have the second one, which is the private healthcare system. And the private healthcare system is funded by the patient. It's not funded by the taxpayer. It's funded by the patient. And that's why it's expensive, because the doctors would go out to the private sector and then run those. And when you look at it, the quality of services provided by both cannot be comparable, because in most cases, the private sector seems to be performing extremely well, although it is expensive. So it comes down to those who can be able to afford will migrate to use the service provided by the private healthcare system. And then on the other hand, when we have the national healthcare system, it's not performing. Given whatever is being said to them. And then we have the third one, which is the traditional healthcare system. And again, it was during to the Emperor's time that they legalized. They passed a law to recognize the traditional service healthcare system that we do have for Taulasia Samoa, and that is fully operational. So at the moment, we have choices. If you're not happy with the public healthcare system, then you can go to the private. If you're still not happy, then you can go to the Taulasia, because even the traditional healthcare system through the Taulasia, you also have to pay them. You also have to pay them. And then the fourth one, which is the spiritual healing. And we know that's the health, And this is done by churches, and even there are other spiritual healers as well. And you can go and seek if you can get any cure for them. So yes, we do have those. But I think most of the complaint is now lost towards the public healthcare system, because that is where the taxpayers, everybody pays, we finance that. And yet it's not living up to its manifestation to provide that health care system for all of us. Those who will go to the private.
Professor,
And they seem to be right. Yeah. So that's where we are at the moment.
Professor, just wanted to because you say going, I love what you said there, the four different sectors there, and a lot of us probably need the spiritual one, healing for everyone. But the public sector, which you've said, to help out the Ministry of Health, which is what we're trying to do. How does it help with the business? Because you say it will get worse, but then for it to get better. So business, you say the private sector needs to come up, needs to kind of do its job for it to kind of help the public. Can you explain how it would help the public in easy terms?
First of all, the private sector is expensive. First of all, we have to recognize that. But then, with respect to the service that they provide, in most cases, when we look at the world, globally, the service provided by the private sector in terms of healthcare system is far more better than than the national one, the public one. And we
okay.
know there are
Yep.
reasons about it. The only challenge that we have is that those who migrate to use that, the private sector, are those who can be able to afford that. But if you look at the overall, the poverty line that we have, it's a lot of people who are still, under that line. And then how can we improve that? There has to be good coordination between the national healthcare system and the private healthcare system, meaning that there needs to be subsidization of the service. Because at the moment, those private doctors who practice at the moment, they use facilities. Most of the theater, the operational theaters and other like the X-rays and so on. The private sector, most of the private don't have that, so they use this healthcare that private health.
Facilities of the
Yeah, and they need to make sure that we work coordinately with that. Now, in that case, the government needs to look at providing the subsidies for that, so that the private sector would be able to to come and help out with it. Because at the moment, it's at the mercy of the patient, and in most cases, those who cannot afford will not go to the private sector. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
If there is an agreement that the utilization of those facilities by the private doctors can be subsidized, and then in that case, more and more of those who are using the public healthcare system will migrate to use that, knowing that a significant portion of that service is now being subsidized. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. That makes so much
And
sense.
then,
Yep.
and then not only that too, that goes for medicine as well. That goes for medicine as well. But see, the price of medicine is quite cheap. That is being provided by the national health system that we have, compared to to the private sector. It's very expensive. But the only difference is that the availability of these drugs. You go to the private sector because they have that, and it's expensive. So for those who have the resources, that's not a problem. But then again, the rest, which is the significant portion of the population, cannot afford that. So if there is any policy meaningful whereby subsidization of those funds can be used to compensate the private sector, and I think that will bring at least a significant remedy to the problem. Otherwise, we are going to face this shortages of the services and, of course, the resources, and who can pay for that? And you're getting one.
Yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from, because when you say that the competition, just say for example, if they do give, if this government work with these private companies or doctors, and they are able to get incentives, or they get slash their money or how much it will use for the theater or the facilities of the government. I mean, if they can get what's the word you used? Subsidies, subsidies from the government. That would then definitely help these private companies to kind of be able to kind of bring their margins up, which then they can be more competitive with each other. And that means the price of medication starts to go down, because the private sector versus the other private sector, they start to have their own little competition, because they can now start to slash prices. So it's a really good idea, strategy, and insight, Professor, which is, we're trying to help the government in any way to kind of make these, and I come back to that winning mentality. If we all work together, Or even just come and ask Professor Afualo to come and give us a quick rundown for the for the government. That would be a very
You
good.
know, one of the resolutions, this was part of our manifesto when I was the president of the Church of Ireland.
Yep.
I proposed I used to teach final year Bachelor of Commerce Economics student. I used to teach the health and education economics. This is 300 level. So I know what I'm talking about. And and understanding that from the health and education background, a lot can be done. And one of the proposals that I put forward with the Tatua Party, if suppose we come into power, I would like to set up a policy, a mandatory policy for medical insurance, for medical insurance. You know, because in that case it will help with what I just said. Suppose you work in government, even whether it's government or the private sector, the workers, the laborers, have to be mandated to have insurance, medical insurance policies, and we know what it is, you know. And out of that policy, patients are now given the opportunity to choose which service that they want to go to, whether to use the national, the public healthcare system, or go to the private sector. But at least, you know, they have the funding. You know what I mean?
Yep.
At least they have the insurance to pay for that. So there is no problem. There is no problem. So in that case, the competition is there because the availability of funding the services is there to be done by the insurance. Second, for those who do not have access to insurance policies, that is where we need to create a Medicare. You know what I mean? We need to create a special Medicare, like, you know, that will cover only for those who are unemployed and those who really need it. And then you open up the market. So both the Medicare, those who are under the Medicare, and those who are under insurance policies have to choose whether they can go to the private sector service or use the government. And in that case, you will find that the competition of the two, including the traditional, automatically those services will be improved because funding is little. But as of now, it's now for medical insurance. I know that there are some institutions here in Samoa that do provide for that, such as UN that we have here, even Spread. They're very, very attractive medical insurance policies because one of my daughters worked for Spread, and she has been, you know, making use of that. Go to New Zealand, wherever, you know, they fully pay. Do you know what I mean? And that's the insurance. So, and I think there are some banks too. But if we have a law, to mandate, you know, that every employer has to provide a medical insurance policy, because it's a win-win situation for the employer and the employee. And for those who do not have access to that, will have to be looked after by the Medicare, government's Medicare program. And then that will solve it.
But that's very good, Professor. You know, can you just go back? You said the UN and the scrape. What is that? You know, can you give us a little bit insight for people who don't understand what you mean by your daughter who was under the scrape?
Yeah. Well, no, she is working at the scrape, the South Pacific Environmental. You know, its headquarters is here in Samoa. It's an international, it's a regional SPRED, SPRED, S-E-R-E-D.
SPRED, okay.
So she works for them. She was under the Subsidy Commission in Nomea. and then after that she was transferred to, and I discussed with her. She has no problem because herself and the three kids, including the spouse, they are all covered under her, her medical insurance policy, which is.
But it's not compulsory. That's not a compulsory. That's optional for her.
No,
Oh, okay.
that's for the spread. That's for the spread. It's compulsory for all the employees of the spread.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's for the employees.
And
But
even you, if you work in the FAO, and they, you're taken care of, and other institutions there too. But the government, I think my last my friend who is a sponsor on Panoa, used to be the chair of the NPF. That was one of the issues that he was trying to push. But I said to him, look, this is what I also want, but we need to make sure that it's done in the right way. It's done in the right way. So that somehow that is lost somewhere. But I know for sure, that Dr. Kudepa, if they come into power, they would seriously look into that.
yeah.
Because I know now we are facing the consequences, and there is no quick solution to it. But in the future, we need to seriously look into that. For those who do not have access to the employment benefits, will have to be taken care of by the Medicare program provided by the government. And that's not much. And for those who are under employment, whether it's private or government, will have to be taken care of by their medical insurances. And then you leave the choices of the patients to them. If they want to use the private healthcare system, that's okay. If they are satisfied with it, they want to use the government, because in that case, you will find that the level of performances, the quality, of the services will automatically go up.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, 100% I get where you're coming from, Professor. And I wish I was around before to kind of help you with this, because that definitely would have been a very good, policy to kind of put out for Tautua when you were running as the leader. Because I think, it's good that we talk about these stuff, because, the ministry's listening. If they get around to listening to this, it helps them, the government officials help them to kind of redirect what you're saying and kind of say, can we do something here? It makes total sense. And I'm sure the person at home is listening and saying, yeah, that makes sense as well. And I just want to say this, I listen to a lot of mentors or a lot of people online, just get some ideas on things. And a lot of them I watch are billionaires. And these billionaires I saw this short video that said, he goes, if you want to make money, if you have 3 of these traits, you would never make money. And he said, these 3 traits indicate the poor. He said, if you're sensitive, if you're proud, and if you're stubborn. And I think to myself about the government, the government right now is all 3 of those things. They are sensitive, they are proud, and they are stubborn. And I'm just thinking, if we just all get past that, and we can just kind of work together and listen to what other Samoans, as yourself, Professor, are saying. Great insight of what you're talking about here, which I hope they take ahead. I got other questions here, Professor. Sorry, I just want to move to the other questions to get your insight. Yep.
Just before we go on, the Ministry of Health, remember I said there used to be 2, and then remerged. So during the remerging process, I had a student who was doing the honors program. This is, I think, about 7 years ago. She did extremely well on the honors, and I said to her, look, you need to go and look at the consequences, the pros and cons of the remerge, of the healthcare remerging that is now taking place, because it used to be run separately, but now we're going back, like the police, and even now now for customs, there is a separation of that. And she did a really, really good thesis, honors thesis on that. And what she found, she discovered that one of the challenges that they used to have, remember in the past, if you heard this from somewhere, we used to have what we call committee to mama. This is a special arm of the healthcare system created for the doctors and the nurses to provide the service. And they would go out to the villages to do all these mandatory injections and so on, check. But somehow during the process, when I read through the results of the findings of Marcela, and she discovered that the reason why the ministry at that time stopped was that they said that a report came out that there were most of the time that these committees came out to the villages. It's just a waste of time. They spend a lot of time on that, and of course fishing for a lot of cultural. And I said, and they stopped this very vital service. And as a result, once they stopped that, the mandatory arm of the Ministry of Health will compulsory, giving them those injections, from different levels. That was not done. You either have to come to, as a parent, you have to come to the national hospital or anywhere, some of those district hospitals, or you do it on your own, whereby any expertise, health expertise is available. And as a result, it resulted in a deadly situation when we had, those incidents with some of those diseases that we had. And the problem was when they found out that a significant portion of the children did not get the shot. That's like the polio shot and those flu or whatever, they did not go. But the reason why those children did not get, the mothers who used to rely on that commits to mama service, whereby the nurses and the doctor would come and they were all, the women's committee would bring them to that special place, and that's what they do. But when they stopped that, the other mothers who could not afford that never went to get those injections. And as a result, when the disease came out, it's just went, and that's why we had a lot of deaths. And as a result, now when the last government, they realized that. But that was one of the findings we discovered from one of my honor students' thesis. And so they, which is good, I'm happy that they reintroduced the Komitsoma to help out with providing, ensure that all the children are being vaccinated. So, there's so much, I think what happens, the reality of the situation has lost somewhere through the thickness of the politics, through the mud of the political ranklings. But at least now, I think we're now moving towards so the reintroduction of the Committee to Mama has also contributed significantly to ensuring that that immunization programs are continued.
That's really good. So I mean, that's what you call good feedback, and then they listen and then they put it back out there. But you said people couldn't afford it at that time. This Tuamama project.
Yeah.
Is this a thing where they now giving it to people in Samoa that can't, like, even if they can't, they can give it to the people who can't afford it, or what's the go there?
Well, at the time when the Committee to Mama was functioning, the women's committee, it is what we call, and this is made up of the chiefs wives, and then of course the origins, and then the unmarried women, and even so they form this very special. It's a very very strong traditional community, which is really good. They look after the social affairs of the families and the villages and even the churches, the districts. And this was one of their core functions, was to ensure that all of the children born to that village are being vaccinated. So when, there is a certain day that they would communicate, in their calendar with the Ministry of Health, then the doctors and nurses would come with the medicine, and then every mother will be there. Because if you will not be there, then you will get the wrath of the committee after the. And so it's really good because they go out, they go out to where they live, even if you live right in the forest, in the plantation, or where they will come for you and then make sure you preen your son. And then when that service stopped because of some whatever stupid reports, that those streets were somehow, very much based on cultural, entertainments and benefits. I said, oh my gosh, how terrible that. And then they stopped. They were looking for an excuse to stop the service. And as a result, it resulted in a deadly, after some years before that, those diseases came, just went directly and affected those because they didn't receive the immunization shots.
Yeah.
And but at least now that has been corrected.
Well, that's a good insight, Professor. That's really good insight, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, the health sector. This what you're giving your friend, the head of the minister of health. I'm sure he can he can kind of look at to see what he can take back to his boss, the prime minister, and see how can I work something out if we do something like this, or even maybe give you a call, Professor, to say can we work together? Let's go to a party, and something like that.
It's very, very simple because when I teach final year economic students on health economics and education economics, I just look at the model, and that was the model I created for them to understand. And I also developed a model for education, which is I heard Dr. Tulep heard about it when I was, and he really liked it. So I'm sure if they would have continued, they would call me to come out, and that's for the education sector. What I proposed, there's a paper that I wrote, is that in order for us to have fair access to education, we've already got free education from year 1 up to year 11 at the time. Now it's up to year 10, I think. And that was first done through the assistance from our donor friends, New Zealand and Australia. And then after some time, Dr. Tulep took over the budget, under the budget. So that came under the education budget from year 1 up to year 11 at the time. But when it comes to year 12, 13, that is the responsibility of the parents who finance that, and in the years beyond that. So I said, look, the best way to solve the problem, we can still maintain, this lower free education. But to be clear, we know that education is mandated by the World Health Organization and even UN and even World Bank, IMF, ADP. It has been mandated that education is not a privilege. It is a human right. It's a right. So every child born has the right to be educated, whether you're poor or not. And so based on that, in order for a universal program to accommodate for all the needs, we need to have a robust program. And that was the economic model I developed. It hasn't been put into practice yet, but I said, look, there are three, um, what we call, we have the parents, and then we have the government, and then of course we have the student, the child. So these are the three main components of the model. They cannot get anything out of it for free. So in order for I would say a sustainable funding, we need to make sure that all of these three are responsible, to the program. So first, we have year 1 up to year 10 now, because now it ends at year 12. So out of those 10 years, funding has to be provided by the government. In that case, and they asked me, well, how can that be happening? Look, the contributors to the educational life of the child, there are three. It's a parent, it's a government, the state, and then of course whoever is outside the employers, because they are the ones that will absorb these children. So it's best if we look at the level of the primary, and that would be a contribution of the parents. Parents can pay year 1 up to year 8. Year 8, this is you're still in the primary, so that's about 8 years, and it's cheap. It's not that if you want to send your children to a private school. And that can be accommodated by parents financially. And that's their contribution. That's the contributions of the parent to this model. Then the second one, which is the government, the state. The state has to finance the student from year 9 all the way up to year 12. You see what I mean? So the first portion of the education is financed by the parent, because the parent has to have a contribution to the child's education. And then the second one, which is the college, this is the high school, that has to be funded by the government. And when the child progresses up to university, that is where the student will come in. It's a tripartite, agreement. So the funding first 8 years, which are the parent, funding of the year 9 up to year 12, the government, and then up to uni, or any portion of that would be funded by the student. So the three: parent, the government, the student. You getting in the point?
Yep.
And then the funding. So I said, look, the funding is very, very, very straightforward. Already we've got the funding under the budget to finance year 1 up to year 10 or 11. So we can use that as portion of that in the year 9 up to year 12. But let the parents pay for, it's not that much, so that they have a contribution into the education of the children. And so when it comes to the high school, the government now is responsible for financing that. And whatever portion that is left will allow the student to start uni life at anywhere. Whatever is left of that portion, the student will have to get a loan from this special funding. Because I was asked, so how can you fund this? How can you fund all of this? I said, it's okay, it's very easy. First of all, we have to look at the NPF model that we have. Very, very similar. It's just we look at the NPF. This is for workers, the employees, employees and employees. There's a special portion of the income that is being removed from the salary, that went in, and then of course the employer. But that does not mean that the model is going to be just like that. If we want this to be a successful venture to make sure that the education system thrives, then we'll have to seriously look into the second stage. And that is where we need to ask our partners, our donor friends, I'm sure they can, because this is education and they would love. If somehow, if we can secure 100 million or maybe more, with their own funds to set up what I call national education fund. If we can set up a national education fund institution, that will take care of everything that we're looking at. So that fund, having said that, suppose we got the 100 million or more to set that up. That fund will cover the expenses for those in the high school level. But whatever is left would be provided by the loan available from this institution to that student. Are you getting that one?
Yep, I'm getting where
so the student, if the student goes to uni, let's say anywhere or somewhere, if it has about 1 year or 2 years left, then what is being remitted back, we have to get the loan, and then after when he or she graduates, won't have to pay back the loan. It's just like a normal student loan. Now, and they asked me, so how can we choose? I said, look, we look at our GDP per capita, the gross domestic, the wealth of Samoa at the moment. At the time, I think it was only about 1 billion something. But now we're sitting at 3.1 billion. And it's very simple that we can use that and the per capita income that we have, which we divide that by 217,000, and then we come up with somewhere like $14,000 tala per person. That's that's how much each person must get from the wealth that we have. Now, using that as a standard measure, we're now looking at the overall. So once a child is born, we have to report this, make sure that once a child is born, then this blessing will be counted into the per capita income. I did the math, So when it counted there, that means the benefits available for this child will only be operational when he or she reaches year 9. Because the 8 downwards is paid by the parents. It's not money. It's not much. And then the government using this fund, this National Education Fund, use that to cover for all the expenses of the college, the high school, up to year 12, from the institution, and the thing is, I want to explain, look, once a child is born, automatically, in our census, that child is a citizen, but that child is also a recipient of that education fund. And that fund will only be used when this child reaches 13 years old. So 13 years for investment. You know what I mean? So when the child is born, it will to about maybe 2,000 or 3,000, if the calculation. So it's about 14,000 when we use the per capita. But that can be corrected to the margin of error. So if it's 5,000, for example, the entitlement of this child, because we look at the growth rate, which is now about 2%, if it's 5,000, for example, then every child born every year is listed and as an entitlement that this is your educational, benefit. So it's already there in the funding, the National Education Fund.
Yep,
You know what I
yep,
mean?
yep. And
It's
so it's
already there
almost like
because
a,
100 million,
so it's almost,
100 million or 200 million. So the fund is there because now this is a new child, and therefore your entitlement is there. And then that entitlement will be invested for 13 years. And when you reach that, it will not yet mature. And definitely by 13 years, it will be probably maybe 30,000, your entitlement.
I
You
get
get
you.
what I mean?
Yep, yep.
So that entitlement will not only cover for the whole of your, uh, high school, but it will also cover a portion of your university if
If you
there is
do.
something left. And whatever is left of your university, if you don't get a scholarship, you will have to get a loan from the National Education Fund. And then you'll pay that back. And then that's how, and out of that institution, the number of employees that I was looking at were probably somewhere like 200, 300 new employees, to manage this fund. And then you don't have to worry about the whole and all these,
That's a really,
stupid.
Professor. It's funny you're saying, this little system you're talking about. I forgot. I missed the first part. If this is something that you put in the tour or something like that, but this is something that I was been thinking about the school system. And I was thinking about this when I was reading this story about people who have left the national university and they struggle to kind of find work in the workforce. And they kind of like, so they got their certificate, and then they, of course, when you get into the workforce, you need experience, but they don't have an experience. So then, like, coming back to what you're talking about here in the educational sector, in this system, what you just said, the parents, they pay for the first section, and then there's a fund that's being saved on the side, put into a bubble for then the middle section for you to take it seriously. And even to kind of make this section of the year 9 to year 12, it can kind of like boost this area here because it's the middle section. You're in your prime. You're ready to go in the workforce. How can we create something where we can kind of better equip our people or the students from year 9 to year 12 to be ready on the workforce, and also making it align to what Samoa needs? For example, mechanics. Do we need more mechanics? Do we need more, electricians? All these different sectors. And so then when we kind of conjoin the two government statistics and kind of bring it forward to the National Educational Fund and work these two together, you can really kind of help the flow of economics to kind of go around Samoa. And then I love what you're saying here. It makes so much sense, the system. But yeah, I love what you said, Professor. And again, another big help to the government if they want to take this on.
Yeah, what you're asking for is the ability of the educational system that we have to provide for that missing link, the experience. We do have it from the colleges, the high schools. We have vocational schools such as Punaoa. This is run by Methodist church. A lot of students take up plumbing, electricity, and so on, engineer. We have the Don Bosco, very, very good TVET, and we also have, I think the LDS also has a very, very good vocational. So from the college, from the high school level, that is being taken care of. But for those because we also offer this at the university. The university at NUS, we do have what we call TVET. This is the tertiary vocational education, and that caters for students who do not want to aspire through the academic, but they would want to do certificates. And then that will lead up to other to higher trainings as well. And we still, I think we are on the very latest phase of what John Howard. Remember your Prime Minister John Howard? Yeah, John Howard came up with a very, very, I would say, positive development for the Pacific, and Dr. Tudepa was very instrumental at the time, and Tudepa was able to convince Australia, John Howard, that Samoa would be chosen as one of the locations for, those Tibets. And a lot of students from the region come here. That's still happening. They come here and they get the certificates, I think, from the certificate 5, and up, because the one up to 4 or 5, it's done at the certificate level and the diploma at anyways. Then there are other levels higher than that, and that is offered by the Pacific Training Program sponsored by Australia. We have that at anyway. So yes, we do that, but the essence of what we are now, I was more focused on of the higher dropout rates from the university. And definitely the biggest factor that contributed to that was the insufficient of funds the parents could not afford. If they don't get it. So if we have a program like setting up a national education fund, that will solve all the problems. And the fund will also responsible for the disbursement of those funds to the schools, not the phone of Hawaii. So we will manage this properly, because we are now going to look at somewhere maybe 200, even just or more workers, new jobs created out of this. So,
Professor, you just said the John Howard thing, the initiative of Australia. So you're saying that Australian students will come to Samoa and they will finish off a paper here? Was that part of the agreement?
If they want. But what I understand from NUS, students from Fiji, Vanuatu, Solomons, even some from BNP, and all over the Oceania, they come here to NUS. This is the program offered by the APTC. It's called Australian Pacific Technical College. Now it's on the other stage. It's different now. I think there's a new name for that.
Okay.
But I don't think if you are an Australian and if you want to enroll, I don't think they will stop.
Okay.
But this was one of John Howard's great vision to help out with the region. So we have one here. I think there's one in Fiji. Probably another one in Vanuatu, Solomons. There are only 3 or 4. But we were very, very fortunate, because Dr. Tudepa, the old man, stood his ground and fought for it, and now we are benefiting. Because the qualification that you earn from this APTC is fully recognized in New Zealand and Australia. If you, as an electrician or plumber or whatever, if you get an opportunity to go there, they will accredit that.
Professor,
but you didn't.
Professor, so we're talking about education, people getting into the workforce for Samoa, to help the kids and getting into the workforce. But then there is shortages of work in the workforce. Where can we look at kind of upping, where can the government look at to kind of enhance create more jobs for the upcoming kids that are coming? Are we facing the government? We're talking about the health sector, where you're kind of helping them with this analogy, this method that you've come up with, but with the government helping them through this area where there could be a shortages of of work in the workforce? Because I don't know if you heard this term. It's very well known around here in the Western society in Australia and New Zealand. Sometimes you're too educated for the workforce. You got too many certificates. I mean, as a professor in your background, what do you think could be done to help, I don't know, to kind of continue this cycle of economics of just making it sure everything flows and you're kind of fulfilling yourself when you got.
See, if you look at an economic model that will use all the variables, remember when we look at the whole GDP and then per capita, we look at all the variables, whether it's employment, whether it's income, or you just name, any other inflation and so on. And we make sure that all of those variables are functional. And then how can we ensure that those variables are functional? Because when we measure growth of an economy, which is gross domestic product, there is a very simple economic model, which is, it's equated like C or Y. Y represents the output. It's called the output model. Y represents the output. And then that is equal to C, which stands for consumption, the general consumption of all the goods and services. And then we have the investment. Then, that's where entrepreneurs, this is what for me. And then savings. And then, of course, exports and so on. So they are all accommodated in. And to identify where there is a need, institutions have a responsibility to communicate with their clients, like us anyways. We have, like our TVET program, even our Bachelor of Commerce. We always communicate with our, whether it's through survey or discuss with them what we call, the output model. And then from there, we know that there is a need. Because usually under the TVET model that we have, at some stage before they complete their certificates and their diplomas, because we offer, they will be assigned to work with whatever employers. And if they do well, they will be recommended to award. And in most cases, most of those have already been earmarked by those employers who work for them. So that is a continuous process we have. But for us, we have to do. We make sure that there is availability of this. Most, I would say, I follow my economic students. The last graduating class, I think this was April, I found out that all of them have already got jobs. So locally, both the private and the government sector. Some are on part-time, and I said, good. And others are now coming back to do postgrad, again with me, and that's where we follow, even with other degrees as well. Others, we have a special course which I am now teaching at the moment with others, other lectures as well. It's called the Capstone, and it's called Economic Analysis. This is for economic students. There is also a course like that for accounting and also management, marketing. But the one that I'm doing is for banking, finance, and economics. We actually teach the students not just the theory. They've got the theory already, because this is final. But this is the crucial moment that we are now instilling in them the knowledge and the ability to be an entrepreneur themselves. Rather than them graduating and go pursue a public service career, like work in the government or even the private sector, rather than seeking that, we train them to become business people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You don't look for a job. But you create your own, your own business. So at the heart of this course, I've already told the students I've never thinking right from the start. From now on, the 14 weeks, you start thinking of an idea, a business idea, if you want to set up a taxi stand or, any business, go ahead. But you would have to really do the research, how to conduct that, how to secure the funds, and do a forecast, break even, and so on. Then you prepare what we call you have to show it to us. Have to show it to us, share it with your other students. This is what you're going to do when you graduate. So rather than going to graduate and work, you're now going to be a business. And quite a few, because of course, when I returned back after, when I was unsuccessful with the election, and I went back, then we decided to, to my colleagues, let's develop something like this. Rather than us providing this background, the education, the technical know-how to work and serve in the government or the private sector, why can't we focus on some, or maybe all the students who would want to be business person themselves? And it has been very successful. But quite a few of my students who came back to re-enroll in the postgraduate diploma, this cognizant. I thought they were working. I asked them, "Oh, so where are you working?" But they just laughed. And then I looked outside, and they, the very latest model of Ford, they were driving those, but they just left. Yeah, it's true. They just left the university 2 or 3 years ago, some 4, and then they just left. Oh, they run their own businesses now. One is now very successful in the salon business, and I know she presented. She gave a presentation on that, and I marked the assignment and my contribution. I said, go ahead. And even in this course, we also invite some of the agencies that can provide the funding. So when they come, like the Business Hub and other bank, they come, and then they keep talks. That will create curiosity within the students who pursue the career, because they now know that they can get the funding. You know what I mean? And so with the help that we have with the Business Hub and others, that will allow them to secure how much, and then they will set up those businesses. And it's interesting. And I always remind them of the situation of Mark Zuckerberg, the owner of Facebook. And I said, look, Mark Zuckerberg was once like you guys, was once a postgrad student like you at Harvard. But what Mark Zuckerberg, he came up with this business idea. And so he used that as part of the proposal. And then what he discovered was that he was going to make more money. So he worked with some friends and developed, where he is now, and he's one of the richest guys. Even if you look at Elon Musk, the stories, and even Microsoft. So a lot, even AI, the guy who Samuel Salt, Altman. It was the same story too. So what I'm trying to say is that in this course, I advise them, look, the sky is the limit. You don't worry about looking for a job. You go be your own boss and compare yourself with a friend. After 5 or 10 years, you will you have your own properties, you run your business, maybe 20 or 30 employees, and you contribute significantly to the economy. And they just say, amen.
No, that's really good, nice insight. Yeah. I mean, when you think Professor, when you think about what you're talking about, when we say you don't, I realize, the university, they do so much for the work for Samoa. You guys coming in, new year, new students going out. I mean, I mean, it really does. They do a great job when you think about it. And as I said, with the university, it should be bigger. And I mentioned to you before the model in America, how NBA is. All these guys are all it's structured off the universities, which will be great to see in the future. If the universities has more of a say in the educational sector in all of the Pacific and also sports, because these models that you guys are talking about, I mean, it's world class, and it's exactly what the standard that we need to be competing with Australia, New Zealand, England, and all these other in Europe to be able to be on the world stage. Because if we can encourage what you're talking about here, Professor, I mean, we can create our own Elon Musks. We can create our own people to be able to do big assignments. Like, one of the assignments at the moment is the seabed. Our backyard. I mean, yes, of course, it's a big ask. With it's such a multi-billion, trillion-dollar industry. But I mean, what you're saying right there, really kind of, in a nutshell, is pretty much you can harvest our own Samoans
Yeah.
and Islanders to kind of go to another level. And I was just laughing to myself, Professor, which I was going to say, you guys should have I don't know how you guys structure of creating a course, but I wish there was a course of how to be a true, honest politician to be linked with these courses of these people when you send them out. Because, that's one thing. The government holds so much power, and I think this is where we're struggling at the moment. We don't criticize because we're trying to pull them down. We criticize because you're in the power seat. You own the power of the future of all of Samoans, and that's why. It's good that we continue to bring out our knowledge, not to continue to, pull someone down here, but more of trying to educate and help each other to understand more. So, did you want to add anything to that?
No, it's just that this is why education has been very dear to me, and I always feel that it's my calling. And although that politics just somehow came across, it's still part of me. But I feel that I have a responsibility. So for how many years left now, that's only up to God. But I do it with all good faith that whoever comes through us, because in reality, I look around the private and the public sector here in Samoa, a lot, or most of those who came through me are either, assistant CEO or CEOs, or even senior, at the senior management level. And I feel very humble. I thank God for that. And I also encourage them to aspire to become future politicians. And it's one of the gospel I preach to them. When I told them, have you ever thought of becoming an MP? And they kind of shocked. I said, no, this is a reality. You guys, you're the future and you've got the education. So wherever you go to work make sure that's the next step. And you are the future of some. So, when the time comes for us to move on, they will stand up to lead the country and they will probably remember what we teach them. Yeah.
Do you think, Professor, universities have a big, because I'm sure the universities in all around America and these other bigger countries, they play a massive part in governments. Do you feel like Samoan University in US play a part in governments, or do you think it could be stronger? And what's your thoughts on that, Professor?
Well, the reality is that academic institutions do influence politics, not just Samoa, but everywhere you go. So since NUS is the only highest institution that we have, from the secular, we also have theological colleges which now offer bachelor's, honors, and master's degree. And probably very soon, or maybe already a PhD in theology. like Piula Theological College, Malua Theological, and I think more as well, and others. So in that case, there is always somewhere along those veins of education that you'll find that there is an impact, an influence of education. And especially if you are probably the institution that we have here in Samoa, we have the USP as well. And then, of course, those who get their education from Australia and United States. But for Samoa alone, NUS, is the leading provider of education and also, employment. And in that case, I cannot speak for my other colleagues as well.
Yeah.
But some of my colleagues who were also academics once became very good parliamentarians in the past. Yeah, and I think that will continue to go on in the future. But it's I said I challenge the students, look, if there is any other thing that you will make sure that you can outmuscle racism, prejudice, it's education. And then they all sit up and they look at me and I said, yeah, I'm telling you, I have rubbed shoulders with my colleagues all over the world, in Australia, and of course, US, Canada. I know the thing. And prove to them that you are as good as they are. You are as good as they are, because we are the same. We were made in the image of God. Whoever says that, whether they are Europeans or Chinese, Africans, Polynesians, we are one. We were all made in the image of God. So whoever strives for the best, like Solomon was chosen when he was just a boy. But when he prayed, he gave out all his prayer with his heart out to God. And he did not ask for wealth or he just asked God for the wisdom and the knowledge to guide his rule over the affairs of the Israelites. And God's heart was touched. And he gave Solomon everything, both the wisdom and the knowledge and everything, the wealth, even the women. He gave him what? He got 600 concubines. That's a lot. And that really let him off the, with the reset, But anyway, so that's what I always remind students, just don't worry about that, because I know even if you have a lot of money, being wealthy does not necessarily mean that they would respect you, because sometimes that wealth will go away. But if you are wealthy in the mind and everything, they will respect. Even if you lie to them, they will believe you. Again, that's God's nature. God is so good. God is His grace upon us. That's for humanity. That's for everyone to receive through the blood of the Lamb, Christ. So, yeah.
Thank you, Professor. I think we'll. I just wanted to ask just an extra on that, on top of what you're saying here, like the influence from our outside to inside Samoa, because you're coming from the perspective of the NUS or the national universities in Samoa, but it's really good to see that. But zooming back out and kind of looking at the reality, there's a lot of influence, like unintentionally, like it's not intentional influence but it's unintentional influence by people here in Australia and New Zealand that make money that it's a lot of money, like a lot of people in Samoans here in their workforce, they make a lot of money, and And then, so that money, when you convert it back to Samoa, it kind of has unintentional power. So then, so how can we mend? This is a thing that's got to be going over the years. We've got to be able to. It has to mend because the two are coming back together. The diaspora are slowly coming back into Samoa, and to kind of contribute to Samoa. As a professor, how do you feel that's going at the moment? Like, because I know there's a stories that there was a story they were mentioning about, there are concerns because there are people from different nationalities coming into Samoa and starting businesses, but the locals are suffering because the disadvantages that they have compared to these competitors like from different countries. But then having our workforce from diaspora also having influence. I see people doing Airbnbs, trying to bring businesses, start rentals and things like that, which is great to see. I mean, just from your perspective, how do you feel like this whole melting pot is happening at the moment? What are your thoughts on this? My last question, Professor.
The reality of globalization is something that we cannot deny. We migrate from the islands to larger states like New Zealand, Australia, and other places, and even other countries as well. So that's human nature. But wherever we choose to go, that would be, your new home, and you make sure that you bloom where you are planted. You make sure you bloom. So, and that's also the advice I say to my students, or even those who leave our shores to go to New Zealand, Australia. Make the best of it, because there's a lot there. So for those foreigners who come here, they will also come with that mentality, and we cannot stop them. What we need to do, there are regulations for certain portions of the business sector that they are not allowed to have any businesses, like the retailing now, Frankie and the Chinese are now in that. But rentals, no. Taxis, no. That's what so I stand with that. But the problem that we're now facing is that the local residents, Samoans, they lease out their businesses to be run by these foreigners, and I think that was the picture faced by the Inland Revenue. It's very difficult because when you go to renew your license, it's renewed upon your name, but the guy who is leasing it from you is an Asian guy, and so that second person seems to be earning more revenue than you because they're just paying the rent, and they're making so much money out of the property or whatever business that you have. So therefore, and I think it's good that you raise the issue that revenue and customs, really need to make sure that they enforce the law, and also that these foreigners who are now using that pathway to set up their business, they make sure that they play fair and they contribute fairly to the economy, to the economy of some. Otherwise, we will end up with, in the next 10 or 20 years, those guys will be running the whole of Apia and then they push us back. So I've always remind the students about that too, because most of what these new guys coming in now, they come and employ our people. So we provide the education for them to come and exploit it, and that's something I don't mind. If they do that, they have to do it fairly and square, like what is happening in New Zealand, Australia. Yeah.
Professor, can you run us through that model there, what you just said there? Like, I mean, I'm not saying to make names, so certain names, but just say you're saying there you will see foreigners coming to Samoa and then they will use a business on behalf of someone else's name, or would they use the land? And then what benefits that the foreigners get?
Mainly retail retail businesses, and I think there are quite a few other businesses as well. But when it comes to the renewal of the license and also taxation, because I think that's where the Ministry of Revenue and Customs need to be very strong to make sure that,
okay.
they comply and the due resource or tax is being paid to the government.
And so these people are
Yeah.
so you're saying, I mean, I'm not saying you're saying it, but there could be things that could be happening that people are using someone else's name, and so then
Oh,
they're
yeah,
just paying for rent, but then they don't pay the taxes of the goods that they're actually selling, which profits them even more, and which
yeah.
really realistically Samoa misses out on the goods and services tax.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
think what is happening is our people are quite aware of it now, which is good. I have some friends who also have some properties that were leased. Even myself too. One of my properties is leased out to an Asian business person. So we collect the lease. We collect the lease, but I know that what that Asian person is collecting from that lease far more outweighs, you know, what they pay to the lease that we give them. So that kind of, but as long as I know that these foreigners play the fair game and they contribute fairly to the economy rather than coming here and they try to look for loopholes.
Yeah.
To outwit the taxation system that we have. Because I think there is a concern from the ministry, I think probably the ministry as well, that the revenue collection, has dropped. I don't blame them, and they tend to be alluding to what we call the compliancy ability of the business community. So that does not necessarily mean the foreign business owners as well, but a large proportion of that business community are also local business communities as well. So it cuts both ways. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's really nice insight again, Professor. I mean, I'm just so intrigued about how things work in Samoa and how can the government better look at it and your advice to the government, which is good for everyone to kind of listen in. But apart from that, I've got many questions, Professor. As I said, I look forward to coming and seeing you in person because I'll just be asking questions and questions. I didn't get to any of the other questions, but maybe next week I'll get to it because I really wanted to hit on I want to do more investigating into the deep sea mining because the US have signed that, and I wanted to kind of come back and get your thoughts on that. Next week
Yeah.
I'll ask all those questions. But thank you again, Professor, for your time. Yep.
Yeah, but just to cap, that was one of the issues I discussed with my other class as well, the seabed mining. I have to look at the consequences that we face, particularly from Samoa, from us, Samoa. We have a very, very small exclusive economic zone, very, very small compared to the rest. American Samoa has a much, much bigger because the islands are situated quite far apart. And so therefore the exclusive economic zone is very big. But even if you look into that, as I was trying to explain to my students, from the development viewpoint, I said to them, look, for any development without the resources, without the elements, without the minerals, there is no development. You know what I mean? without and then I point them to the periodic table. I said, look up the periodic table. You have the hydrogen, the helium, and so on. And then you have calcium, carbon, hydrogen. There's about 110, known elements. And man use those elements for development. And so if there is an insufficient of any of those, man will have to go anywhere they can go to get that. And that's exactly what is happening with us in United States is now the other superpower, and China controls about 80% of the rare earth, which is, if you look at the category, these are the minerals that are crucial to the security of United States and as the region, and also the technological race. So we are caught. We are caught.
It's a good thing for
we
some.
can understand. Of course, I understand the backlash that we don't want them to take up our backyard. The extreme. But look, when push comes to shove, I think we have to be very realistic about this. Even Australia too, because the competition with China now and Russia, it's my goodness, This is so. The United States will make sure that they get all those rare earth resources to provide the security for the whole of including us, and you name it. So that's it's a good topic, because I heard some of the ministers, clergy ministers, preach about it, and I laughed and I said, "My gosh, these guys don't understand." Yeah. Well, after the creation, when everything was created by the word and then us, and then we were made in the image of God. And then he said, be fruitful through the whole of creation. And when he came to us, he gave us everything. And we make sure that we manage the resources. And those resources are referring directly to the 110 minerals that are listed in the periodic table. Because without those, we cannot develop. There is no development. We cannot. So I think it's a matter of understanding the logic. If they want, then we have to learn from the case of our dear friends Nauru. We have to learn from the case of Papua New Guinea, Oakenville. We have to learn from that very, very. If you look into that copper mine, because I think it was probably the second largest in the world, where that dispute went on. And so a lot of this is happening. So there would be a lot of pros and cons, but we have to make sure, since we are surrounded by our livelihood depends on the ocean around us. If we can convince our bigger brother Donald Trump that they can get this mineral outside, they can go beyond our exclusive economic zone, but not be within our 200 mile. Because if suppose that they move somewhere, China will come, because these are international waters. So that's why China claim almost the whole of the South China Sea.
I see that.
So they're now disputing with Philippines and even Vietnam because of that. It's the same thing, because that's where and China controls 80%, 70 or 80% of the rare earth. And without rare earth, you cannot run technology, the AI, even all of what we have in the computers. All of those softwares.
The chip.
But Australia has a lot of this. If your friend Alpo, if Alpo is genuine enough, because inside Australia is a huge continent. There's quite a lot of this inside the desert. If they can mine this and say, okay, please don't touch the Pacific. you can mine this and that. That would be a fair deal, but I don't know. Probably I'm almost saying, I changed my position.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big subject. This the minerals and my only concern, which if we were, because this is kind of like a leverage thing here, where we got in our
Yeah,
backyard we have our minerals. Now, if we have what the government did recently with the $10 million, if we only got $10 million for a big ship, a navy ship broken down in the reef, I mean, come on, we never. I hope whoever is bargaining for Samoa and America Samoa for the
yeah,
Pacific, we make sure that we get our fair share. I mean, because when you look at the history, even in what happened in Papua New Guinea, it's not good. And this is the
yeah,
downfalls in my mind. It's not. I don't blame capital, but just the greediness of that. I want, the money makes people kind of money moves things, and it's done to so many of our Pacific Islanders, and that's the concern that I have.
Well, see, the third part of mining, any mining, whether it's seabed or when you look at the lands, the land minings anywhere on Earth, you can mine because the 110 elements, those are the elements that form the core components of any development. Any development. If you look at the vehicle industry, anything, even what we consume, the agriculture sector, and so on. So that's why the issue is very, very delicate. But if we can find a good balanced diplomatic approach to Donald Trump through American Samoa, because I saw the Commander of American Samoa, she was very vocal and emotional about rejecting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but she's just a voice, one of the voices in the wilderness, which is good, But I think we need to understand that because if anything happens and if they scoop up everything, we are done. We are done. So that's where they really need to look at a better solution. Rather than mining and then look at other places where they can. And that's why Donald Trump was so aggressive about getting hold of Greenland.
Yep. Okay.
And so I hope that he would continue pushing for Greenland so that we are protected.
I mean, that's for next week, Professor. I want to do more investigating into that story to kind of see the pros and cons for us going ahead in the future. Because if America Samoa got to give it up, at least make them a actual state of America. Because I don't like how American Samoa is left out. They're not actual citizens. I mean, give them recognition. At least do something for American Samoa. That would be great to kind of see a country of America right next to Western Samoa. I mean, a lot of benefits there. But it was wait to see that story. But thank you, Professor, for your time.
If you look at Tokelau, which is to the north of Samoa, they have a much bigger exclusive economic zone than us. And there are more rare earth minerals within the Tokelau. So New Zealand is responsible for that. But for us, we're very small. It's to by all costs we will lose. So I can only hope that through soft-headed diplomacy that they will not mine our seabed. They can go somewhere. The Pacific is huge. It's a very huge ocean, and leave us alone.
Thank you, Professor. I appreciate your time. I'll let you have the last words to anything you want to talk about.
Thank you very much, Mike. It has always been a pleasure to use this opportunity to share with our friends, our viewers, and then at the same time too, we also proclaim the goodness of God. Not unto us, O Lord, not unto us, but to thee, the glory of His gracious love and His honesty. Yeah. On that note, yeah. God bless. Let's see you again.
Thank you, Professor. Have a good week. Thank you guys that are still tuned in and to the show. What a show with Professor. I'm really happy to kind of go through that and come up with some kind of insight of the health sector. I had a whole heap of questions for him. But I guess I got to put it for next week, and also ask the questions to the Honourable Dr. Tulepa tomorrow. But this I'm really happy that we got to get a possible solution to the health sector, because it's struggling at the moment, and as we can all see, that the health minister has come out and he has admitted it. Kudos to him for coming out and saying what he needed to say, the truth, and giving Samoan people the insight of what's actually happening. So great job from the minister, and good signs ahead for the government. If the ministers can all talk like that, and all can just be transparent with the media, it will really help people give an insight of what's really happening. So for us to get out of that talk, what Professor was saying about the system, the healthcare system, and what would he do if he was in, or when his policy suggestion when he was the total leader. I mean, that policy that he suggested about the private sector having to, so the scenario at the moment is Samoa is kind of struggling to kind of pay off its debts with medications and making sure that there's medicines for all of Samoans. That's the scenario that's happening at the moment. And so even though they got 183 million that's given to them for this year, for the next financial year, for the year ahead, the minister has come out and said it's not enough money for us to kind of cover all our expenses. In other words, that's pretty much what he said. And it's not enough money. Professor had just said what he said. He agrees that there's not enough money for him to do what the sector needs to do. Now, Professor had mentioned a whole new system which can help Samoa get to another level of getting them out of this slump that they're in. So his suggestion is based around making the private sector stronger for all of Samoa to kind of move towards the private sector. But then in saying that, the government have to kind of give incentives. They have to give them have to give them cuts of, or leniency on certain, maybe taxes. It could be on certain using facilities. They need to cut them some slack, in other words, to the private sector. For then the private sector has more margin. They've gained more profit. So when they made more profit, then it gets other competitors to come into the private sector to kind of be they want part of that share of the profit. So then they start to compete. So just say, for example, we're talking about Panadols. If Panadols at a certain are priced at a certain price on the market. So on the private sector, if they've been given some leniency in the back for them to even get the Panadol, so then the Panadol will be sold at a cheaper rate. So then another person would bring their Panadols, and then they'll be trying to I want to still make, we're making a bit of profit here. So then next thing, they make their Panadol cheaper. So it's just the private sector just start to kind of go at it with each other. And because the poor public sector at the moment, it's not there. It doesn't work at the moment because there's not enough money from the government to give to help it get along at the moment. So they just obviously have to sit on the side while the private go at it, and hopefully that private sector will kind of drive more attention, more people to kind of tune into their facility, into their services, in buying from them. And then what happens is the whole market starts to reshuffle. The people of Samoa should reshuffle towards this new private sector. Professor has already said that new system where he would say make every Samoan in these businesses running businesses to have insurance policies. So then it's like if you're a worker, you have to have insurance policy. So then you can use these facilities, which will benefit the private sector and it will boost it up. But then when you got the public sector, which is for the unemployed and the people that can't afford it. So it just makes sure that they got enough money to boost their sector, and their sector is booming at the moment as well. And so the private and then the public sector are both booming. This is the idea of Professor trying to jumpstart this fiasco that we are in at the moment with the medical health sector. So I'm really glad that we kind of got into this sector, that question, because it kind of really opens up a possibility that the government can, an alternative that the government can look at and say, let's do that. Because we're all trying to work together. At the end of the day, despite all these people trying to like pull us down and say that we're just being negative. Another thing that was also good as well, that Professor had brought up, was the educational sector and his idea, his mythology, his method of this one from parents. So this idea of having a national educational fund institution. And then so he explained the whole method to us earlier on the show. And just that in itself as well, it's another brilliant idea that the government can implement for themselves to help Samoa. But I'm really happy for us to even talk to someone like Professor with his background to kind of give us these insights. And I look forward to next week. As I said, I'm going to be talking more about the Samoan backyard and the minerals that are looking to be harvested, which we obviously are not. Some people are happy, some people are not happy about it. But it is the future of Samoa, and it's something that we need to kind of look at, because I've always thought, as a Pacific Islander country, Samoa, you would always make sure that the number one thing is security around our areas, so like our borderlines, because I think if you've got like, just say if it's like, I think the zone is like 300 or 270 kilometers to 300 kilometers from Samoan Island outwards. So that's all our area. So I know there's, the Chinese boats and these other Asian boats that come into different sectors. They go into the Pacific and they start to kind of fish our ocean. And it leaves us Samoans, us Pacific Islanders, and other, and Samoan, the Samoan people with like less fish to fish from, and so then our seafood declines, then also that Samoa is more dependent on overseas and getting our food from overseas. I've always thought, like, why isn't there more people like in Samoa? Why isn't Samoa like looking at the ocean, their backyard, and really trying to make the backyard of themselves like a next level? How can we make Samoa like Dubai, or these other places that are happening, like Singapore? How can we modernize, and what are our strengths? And I know a lot of people say, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough people. But I just think that there's ways and there's ideas that we need to kind of look at and say, well, you don't need money, you just need an idea, and you just need to kind of talk to the right people and then things can happen. And I think it comes back to what we say in the Bible as well. You got to have faith. You got to have faith and so if you have an idea and you have faith with it, I guess you can see what happened in Dubai. Things open up, as I said, like with the minerals, underwater minerals at the moment, the future of the world is depending on this AI technology. So if they are going to harvest our area, I mean, they harvested the oil from Dubai and these areas around Dubai. If they're going to use the Pacific, well, the Pacific's obviously going to have it has to benefit like tremendously, not just a little bit, like tremendously. Because as I said before, I was just saying to Professor, like Papua New Guinea has been taken advantage of because these massive corporations, oil corporations, have just come in and just done their drilling the oil out of the Papua New Guinea. And like, what is Papua New Guinea? You go to Papua New Guinea and the people are suffering. And it's like, and then you see some areas, it's just like, it's booming, but there's a lot of people that are suffering in Papua New Guinea as well. So that like, we got to make sure that our people don't get taken advantage of. That's the main concern. Look at the Aboriginals. They got, like, the Aboriginal people of Australia absolutely got massacred, smashed, and then where's the incentives to help the culture and those people up? Instead, like all this wealth of coal, all the minerals of Australia, all the assets of Australia are all gone to these rich corporations. And these are the concerns that I have when it comes to leveraging the backyards of the Pacific. If we kind of don't have the IQ and have the brains to work with each other, to be making sure that these guys from other corporations, when they come and they do business with the Pacific, that we get our fair share at least. And so that means our fair share means that we can implement a Dubai or a Middle East of the Pacific, because we can get so much out of it. When I look at the Pacific, there's so much potential in the Pacific. I mean, we should, at the moment, we should have people, we should already have an airline that's going into Pacific Islands. It should be hopping between islands. I mean, we haven't yet got to that level yet. But like, why is that such a big thing for the Pacific to kind of be interconnecting with each other? Because we are all brothers in this massive ocean. So it's important for us to be able to connect and understand, like, America have got like many states all conjoined in one area. So then it's almost like you go to another area, but it's all united. So they're all united, but they're all different states in their own different ways. They're unique in their own different ways. They got their own way of living in different states. So in the Pacific, we should kind of come with some type of thing like that. And then it needs to be strong. It needs to have airlines be able to go to Tonga go to Niue. It needs to be just like being able to kind of use businesses, connect with different businesses from the Pacific. How can we better our brother? How can we better our brother? Because when it comes to the European and to the Asian market, these guys are they're so ahead of us because we are not thinking like that. Us Pacific, we're not thinking like them. We're not thinking like the Americans. We're not thinking like the Asians. And so this is where our PI community needs to stand up and have a look at it and go, well, our asset is our backyard, and our asset is that we got each other, to connect on. Our asset is our communities in these countries like New Zealand and Australia. So really, our asset is Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, Fiji, all of the Pacific, Papua New Guinea, right? So we need to merge together and kind of somehow come up with something where we can really help all of the Pacific. But it's a little bit tricky because it's a little bit tricky when I'm looking at it. It's because of the influence of what we call the Palangis. the Palangi is in certain different areas. That's where it gets a little bit tricky. So how do we, it's a big muddled up mess at the moment, in my mind at the moment, but as I said, we can't just sit here and go, have a mentality of like, it is what it is and that's it. Like, we have to have the mentality of winning. I think we have to like have that mentality of like, to become a dreamer. We have to be able to dream as Samoans. We have to dream. And as I said, with this whole negative commenting and people like trying to put people down in the Pacific, anywhere in sports, see, that kind of really pulls people down. And so then the winning mentality, we just lose. We just lose because people are just being negative to each other. But us Pacific, we have to find a way to kind of work together as Samoans first, and then also to work with the diaspora and work with the Pacific Islanders to come together, because the Americans and the Chinese, when they come in the next 20 years, when we got our kids got our grandkids, like, what's that going to look like? It's going to be too late, because these corporations already came into Samoa and they'd already done their stuff. And so that's why it's important that we talk about it right now, and we work with our brothers and sisters around the Pacific to how can we get better? How can we win for all of us? What does winning look like as well? And who do we need to look out for? See, these are the conversations that the Asians and the Americans and the people in Europe, these rich corporations, they already had these conversations. And us Islanders haven't even got to that stage yet, because we're bickering on comments and bickering on who's better and who's a better leader and who's this. Like, we're so behind. And as I said, we should be already having airlines coming from Fiji like every week. It should be a train station from Tonga to Samoa. And then how can Tonga and Samoa's connection build businesses? How can our people from our colleges be able to go to Tonga and work over there, because they need some engineers over there, or they need some engineers in Tokelau, or so they need some engineers in Vanuatu. Like, we need to kind of interconnect like that, and our leaders need to interconnect. But it seems like we have an issue with our own leaders not even be able to become leaders, because they're so in a poor mentality. And as I said, this billionaire that I listened to, he said, if you're poor, if you want to be poor, you got to have these 3 traits. And those traits are, you got to be sensitive, you got to be proud, and you got to be stubborn. And then and I kind of like laugh a little bit about it, because pretty much the Samoan government is all those 3 at the moment. They're very sensitive to media criticism, and they're very proud, which is great. In some way you're proud, like fast government and all this stuff. Yeah, that's great. And then you're very stubborn. You don't want to admit when something's wrong is wrong. You don't want to bring in the audit to it. So these 3 things, this billionaire is telling everyone, like, if you want to be poor, you got to have these 3 traits. If you're surrounded by these three traits. And like, even just one of them, like, so he said, like, it's not just 3, like one of these 3 is why you're poor. So if Samoan government have any of these 3, well, then there's going to be a big issue, and that's why you're poor. So this is what this billionaire is saying. So I believe Samoa has all 3. Since they're sensitive, they're sensitive, they're proud, and they're stubborn. And so that's why, like, the government needs to do better of Samoa, and the Prime Minister, I know he can do it. And I'm as I said, I'm gunning for him to do it. I'm hoping that he turns around and he works with his brothers and his sisters, his Samoans, and stop being stubborn, and stop being sensitive, and stop being too proud, and just go, as a leader, let's rock and roll. Like, Professor, come here. let's make amends to all the HRVP. You know, this is what the government, this is what a leader looks like. That's what a leader does. You know, and then from then we can go on to bigger issues and bigger things that we can conquer, like the Pacific, the Oceania. But that's where I want to leave it today. Tomorrow we got another talk with the Honourable Dr. Tulepa, and yeah, thank you for tuning in. If you guys have any questions or anything, topics that you guys want to, us to discuss, or even if you have insights of certain subjects that you think that you have background and knowledge to kind of share, right? By all means, message in and we can talk about this, and you can come on the show. I've had a few fast people message me from before, and it was just too heated at that time to kind of bring them on. But I'm kind of getting used to being in front of the camera now, and just kind of like wanting to open up to what other people think, and open up these conversations that we need to have as the Pacific Islanders to better ourselves. So if you guys have any questions yourself that you want to answer that I want to ask to Professor or Dr. Tulepa, by all means message me, and then we'll go from there. But anyways, guys, dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless us, all Samoans around the world that are listening, anyone that's with us, that are wanting us to win. We are truly grateful, and we are thankful for your love and joy and abundance that you share upon all of us. We pray for our people that don't want us to win, that you may them show them the light and help them through their traumas. We also pray for our government of Samoa and all the leaders, that they do the right job for all Samoans, and also have a blessed weekend ahead of us. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
My safe refuge, my treasure.